welcome to the panel on ace relationships. My name is Katie, and I'm going to be your host for this afternoon. But don't worry, you will not be hearing too much from me because I am joined by our three wonderful panelists who you should see on the screen. These are Kayla, who some of you may know as the co-host of Sounds Fake, but okay. Daniel, who some of you may know as the creator of Slice of Ace, and Christa, who those of you in Michigan, at least, may know as one of the people running the ASPEC Centre Space there. Now, before I let Kayla, Daniel, and Christa speak, I'm just going to go over a few notices and ground rules. So you'll see a chat box to your right, and if you want to chat, share thoughts, share ideas with each other, please feel free to use it. We're encouraging as much interaction as possible. The same rules apply there as they do in any AVEN event, so please do keep it polite and civil. The chat box is being lightly moderated. We might not be able to keep up with every comment, and if you do want to report an issue, please email the email address in the description box and someone will pick it up. Now, if you want to ask a question, please use SliDo and not the chat box, as Sasha, my wonderful co-moderator, may not be able to catch it in the chat box. The questions are being moderated, so again, please treat it like you would an in-person conference, as otherwise Sasha may have to fight you in response, and that would be sad. Anyway, that's it from me. I am going to hand over to the first of our lovely panelists. So Kayla, would you mind telling everyone a little bit more about yourself?
Sure. So hello, I'm Kayla. Like Katie mentioned, I'm the co-host of Sounds Fake But Okay, a aromantic, asexual, demisexual podcast. So I am myself demisexual and heteroromantic. And I guess for my context for this panel, I have had several long-term relationships with cis men in the past. And I'm currently in a long-term relationship with a cis man. So I guess those are my credentials for being here today.
Awesome, thank you. And Christa, how about you?
Hey, I'm Christa. I use she or they. I run a ASPEC Centre Space, which is basically just a space for student aces to get together, talk about life and asexuality or not, whatever we're feeling. I'm asexual, I'm gray romantic, so I'm also on the aros spectrum, and I'm somewhere in the bi-pan area. So in terms of my dating resume, I was in a long-term relationship with a woman for a while, currently single, not really looking to mingle, but I mean, you never know. And yeah, that's me.
Awesome, thank you. And last but by absolutely no means least, Daniel, would you mind telling us a bit about yourself?
Yeah, I'm Daniel, as it says below my face or to the side of my face. I identify as homoromantic asexual, and I run the Slice of Ace YouTube channel, which is where I post videos about asexuality and the surrounding spectrum and all that from my perspective as a homoromantic ace. As far as dating goes, I'm currently in a long-distance, long-term relationship with a gay guy who is currently asleep. So I'm frustrated because he's supposed to be watching me.
My partner is also asleep on the West Coast, so we have each other.
How dare they?
Fine.
So what I'm hearing is we really should have scheduled this later so the your guys' partners could all have watched.
No, they could have woken up for this. Come on.
Yeah, exactly.
If they really cared.
I told him yesterday, if you really cared about me, you'd wake up at 6.
Awesome, thank you. So that sounds like a real wide range of experiences. And this is the part of the session where we let you, the audience, help us direct the panel. So you should all have been submitting questions to SliDo. If you have a question you want to ask, please feel free to head over there. And I will be reading them out. So the first question we have is, dating as an ace can be really tricky. What are some tips you have for aces who are starting out in the dating game? For example, how to meet people?
Is there anyone in particular? I guess I could answer.
Go first.
I found it very useful to use dating sites just because you can put on Tinder and OkCupid, you can put that you're asexual in your profile, so it'll be front and center. And I find that a good way of broaching that subject instead of having to awkwardly bring it up after a day or two, where they may have already developed feelings by that point. Yes.
Thank you. How about you, Christa and Kayla?
Yeah, I don't know. As demisexual, I feel like I've been pretty lucky in that it hasn't been too difficult for me. I don't know if that's because I'm demisexual, just because I've gotten lucky, but I also used dating apps pretty heavily in college, and after I came out and understood that I was demisexual, I would put that in my bio, just so that could like get right out of the way and they would know. I found that people that I met in real life, I guess it was a little bit more awkward. I kind of had to figure out if they knew, when to tell them, if they didn't know. So I think that's definitely kind of hard to navigate, is kind of having that conversation.
Yeah, I think it's kind of, I mean, it's hard regardless to try and meet people, at least personally. And I think it kind of depends on how you prefer to get to know people, whether you want to do real life or online. I know for me personally, I like meeting people in real life because I like being friends with someone before I start dating them, so I can know if we're compatible. And then also, like, I'm very open about being asexual, so if we're friends, then it's guaranteed that you already know what's going on with that. I did recently join Hinge, though, which is a dating app. I kind of low-key hate it, but that's fine. But I've got asexual in my profile on there because just like, don't waste my time. If you're not down with asexuality, I'm not going to be interested anyways. And it's been a good way to like talk to people, that I can say. Haven't really been on many dates from that yet, though.
Awesome. Thank you. That sounds really helpful. And move on to the next question, which is, as an ace, do you think it's possible to have a romantic relationship with an allo partner? And in particular, how would you establish boundaries without hurting the other person? So I don't know if, again, Daniel, you might be best placed to start this one.
Yeah, I would hope it's possible, or otherwise I have an imaginary friend. Yeah, I've been dating my boyfriend for, I think, about a year. I'm not sentimental enough to keep track of dates. But and a lot of the time has been long distance, to be fair. But I think the thing you have to realize is that even in a relationship between two allo people, there will be disparities in what they want sexually and what they feel sexually. So they still have the same problems. It's just I guess it's more distinct for if one of the partners is ace. But it's definitely very important to work out. I think it's important to work out before you get into a relationship what your boundaries are and what the point that you definitely don't want to cross, just so you can establish that early on and stick to that, because you may have feelings for someone, but you have to take care of yourself as well. But yeah, I think it's definitely possible to have a relationship with an allo person. There are good ones out there. And also, I'm very sorry to the captioner because I'm speaking quite fast right now.
Hopefully the captioner has caught all of that. And for those of you who are using the captions, just a reminder to press I think it's the closed caption button at the bottom, and you should see the live captions come up. So thanks very much, Daniel. How about you, Christa or Kayla? Do you have any thoughts on the question?
Yeah, I think I want to reaffirm, I guess, what Daniel was saying from my allo friends who are in, like, both of them are allo relationships. That's definitely something that happens, or at least needs to happen in allo relationships anyway, is setting boundaries of like how much sex drive you have, how much sex you want to have. So hopefully your allo partner will be open to that or have experience with that. I personally have gotten quite lucky. My most recent relationship is kind of the only one I started the second one I started while I was already openly demi. And so, kind of having that conversation beforehand of, hey, I'm demisexual, this is what it means. And then luckily my partners have been very cautious about like asking me if I'm okay, if I'm comfortable with whatever's happening. So I think just a lot of checking in on both parts is important.
Yeah, that makes absolute sense. And Christa, how about you?
Yeah, I mean, echoing what everybody else said, but also like communicate. It's very important to communicate your boundaries because they could also change over the course of the relationship. They could change like within a day. And it's really important to have some way to communicate that to your partner. Otherwise, it's not going to work. And I think it's very important to keep in mind that people can have like 1,000 differences between each other than just, are you ace or are you allo? And any number of those factors can affect the relationship as well. But yes, it's very possible to have a relationship with an allo person.
Awesome. It sounds like communication is really the key there. So our next question is, what would be your top 5 things to say to a young ace who is trying to find love while being ace? I'm going to give that one as a free-for-all rather than telling Daniel he has to answer first. So free-for-all, go for it.
Oh man, that's so hard.
We're going to have to come up with 5 collectively, I think.
Yeah.
I think one of my first ones is, I guess, like, don't feel guilty, or at least, I guess, try not to feel guilty. I think that's something I felt a lot in the beginning, especially of this person wants, to have like sex right away or something, and I don't want that. Like, are they going to not want to go out with me, or is this not going to work? So I guess just doing a lot of talking to yourself about like, no, it's okay. Like, I need to be confident in what I want, and that's okay.
Yeah, I think either like a related point or a separate point, but listening to your feelings a lot was something I didn't do very much so at the beginning. If you feel uncomfortable in a situation, like get out of the situation. Don't do things because you think you should, or tolerate things just because you think, oh, this will make me a good partner, and something like that. Listen to what you're feeling, and because those feelings are important.
Awesome. Sounds really sensible. I think we still have 3 top things to go.
The number
I can always move on to the next question if you guys try to think of the remaining 3, if that helps.
My last one, I think it's kind of like very related to what I said for the first one, but something I really struggled with as well was just the other person's expectations, which is kind of what I already said, but just making sure that you aren't too worried about what other people think is supposed to happen in a relationship. There's kind of like a standard script of like, oh, by the 3rd date, you should be having sex or else. And so you might think that your partner expects that, but A, they probably don't expect what you think they're expecting because people are complex. And B, it doesn't like really matter what they expect if it's not something that you want. If that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
I think that makes sense. Hopefully everyone else does too.
I think also don't feel like less than because you're ace, or like, oh, I'm not going to be a good partner because I don't want sex or something like that. No, you are a worthy person who's totally capable of being in a relationship. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise.
Yeah, to add on to that, if you think about a relationship, you don't, like, if you can see 2 people in a relationship and they're not having sex, like, that's not the only part of a relationship. So there are, even for allo people, it's not like they only have sex with their partner. They also like go on holiday and like watch films and do other relationship things that are leaving my mind right now.
Yeah, I definitely have like allo friends and allo relationships that do not have sex often. It's like once a month, maybe.
I'd be quite shocked if I met up with like a couple of my friends and they were just having sex.
That'd be shocking.
That'd be terrifying.
That would be shocking.
I'm not sure I needed that mental image in my head, but thank you. Did we hit 5, do we think?
Sure, yeah.
At least 4.5.
Close enough.
Okay, if we didn't hit 5, please do let us know in the questions and we'll try again. In the meantime, we'll move on to our next question, which is a very interesting one. So how do you guys differentiate between a crush and a squish?
I don't want to hug.
God, you guys have good questions. I think it's just like the activities I want to do with that person. Like if I have a crush, then I'm probably like, I want to give them a kiss or like, you know, have romance. But for a friend, it's, you know, a lot more platonic activities. I also find myself with people I want to be friends with, I'm a lot less nervous. For whatever reason, I think, you know, there's this societal pressure of like romance is much more important than friendship, which is not true, but that's kind of what's ingrained in your mind. So I definitely get a lot more like anxious and nervous around a crush than I would a squish.
Yeah, I'm pretty similar. Like, for the average person I interact with, I don't want them to touch me in any sense. Like, I don't like handshakes, I don't like hugs, I don't like anything. But then if I'm like romantically attracted to someone, I'll just be like a koala bear, just like cling on to them and never let go. So it's very easy to tell the difference to me. Just like, yeah, like Kayla says, depends on what I want to do with that person.
Yeah, for me, it's a little bit more complicated where I'm kind of the opposite of Daniel, where I'm very physically affectionate with my friends. I do tend to like koala bear and climb all over them as just a way of expressing affection. And part of the reason why I identify as gray romantic is because a lot of the times I'm really not sure what attraction I'm feeling. I just like hanging out with a certain person. But for me, what I think the distinction has become is just kind of having an intention of setting up a romantic relationship and thinking, hey, I kind of want to build a life around this person or like with this person in my life as well. Because a lot of times friends are very important to me, but we're not sitting down thinking, okay, well, maybe we should plan out the next couple of years together or something like that. So specifically having that romantic intention has kind of just been what's become a crush for me.
Yeah, someone in the chat did just say that they had to Google it, and I realized we didn't actually define what a squish is.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's just, I didn't realize either. I'm just used to the ace vocab. It's basically a crush, but platonic.
If you like really want to be good friends with someone.
Yeah.
Whereas a crush is a romantic attraction.
Yeah, I definitely agree with Christa, though. That's what I kind of see as like the difference between what a romantic relationship and a friendship even are is like, is this someone you're going to sit down and talk about taxes with? Is this someone you're going to like, and kind of the difference between like a QPR and a friendship too. Is this someone you're going to move across the country for? Is this someone who you're going to get a joint bank account with? Like my best friend, well, never, me and Sarah do have a joint bank account, but like my friend, no, my boyfriend, like, yes, we need to, you know, talk about the future.
You might as well just label it platonic attraction and tax attraction.
I mean, yes.
Talking about taxes.
I will give you £5 if you can get tax attraction in the vocab of the conference by the end of the day.
In all spaces today.
I actually really want to see that. But going back on track and moving away from taxes, I think we'll move on to the next question, which is, how soon should you tell someone you're demi or ace? Or do you think you should declare it immediately on dating sites or, you know, when someone asks you for a date? So I think this ties in a little bit to some of the earlier questions, but maybe if we could sort of focus a bit more on the initial start, that would be really helpful.
Yeah, I tend to be very upfront about this sort of stuff. Like I said in the intro, I mean, don't waste my time. If you're not, if you don't think you could date someone who's asexual, then we're not going to get along. So I think declare it immediately. If you're on a dating site, put it in your bio or something. If it's someone that you meet, probably don't just be like, hey, I want to go out with you. Also, I'm asexual, but like bring it up in conversation at some point kind of early on, because you might as well have that discussion pretty early, get it over with and see where they're at, or if you need to like answer questions about asexuality for them. But yeah, being upfront about it, I'm a big fan of.
Yeah, I think. Sorry, go ahead, Kayla.
No, you go.
Well, I would say a typical British standoff, but you're not even British, so it doesn't work. Yeah, since I'm already speaking, it's up to you when you decide to come out or tell someone your race, because you shouldn't feel forced or pressured to come out. But I think if you're getting into a relationship with someone, you want to be discussing boundaries and what you're comfortable with, just so you feel safe and that there is that trust there. So I think it's probably an important conversation to have, and it will ultimately lead to finding a better relationship if the person does know that about you. But yeah, from my perspective, I prefer to come out straight away, just so they have more time to think about it and decide whether they want to date someone who is ace before like developing feelings for me.
Yeah, I've definitely found that for me, it's helpful to like have it in a dating profile bio. The last kind of person I was like in a situationship with, I guess, before I was like fully like, I'm definitely demi, it wasn't discussed. And that relationship gave me a lot of anxiety just around expectations and like DTRing and all of that, defining the relationship, if that's DTR. Sorry, Daniel. So I just found like it just, for selfishly, like it's just better for me. Like it's probably better for the other person too, but like I personally found that I'm just a lot more comfortable and I have less panic attacks when I'm just know that everyone knows and that every expectation's on the table. It just makes me feel more comfortable. But that's me.
Yeah. I mean, being comfortable is obviously extremely important. So thank you all very much. The next question is sort of almost going to the start of the date, the very, very start of dating rather than the actual date itself. What was your journey like to discovering your romantic orientation? I'm going to pick on Christa first because I feel like I haven't made Christa speak first in a while. So go, Christa.
That's fair. So I figured out the asexual thing first because I kind of just assumed I was straight, because I was like, oh, well, I'm not really interested in having sex with women, and I never quite thought about, hey, I feel the same way about men. But figuring out I was asexual and that the split attraction model was a thing then let me kind of explore those different feelings. And I figured out I was, I think I identified as biromantic for a while. And so, I mean, that went on for a while. I was very happy identifying as biromantic, but I sort of had this nagging feeling that maybe I was also a little bit aromantic, because I wasn't interested in romantic relationships for a very long time. Everyone was around me like dating and whatever, and I was just very happy not participating in that. And eventually I found out about how there's an aromantic spectrum, similar to how there's an asexual spectrum. And I wasn't totally sure where I felt on that for a while, so I was very hesitant to pick up any of those labels. But I've started using gray romantic now because, as I've said, a lot of the time I'm not quite sure what kind of attraction I'm feeling. I just know that I like hanging out with people, basically. And also, there's a lot of aspects to aromanticism that I relate to. A lot of stuff about romantic relationships just kind of confuses me. But I also know that eventually I want at least a relationship where we could do romantic things together. So I'm somewhere in between, and it's complicated, but that's the label I feel happiest using right now.
Awesome, thank you. And how about you, Kayla? Sorry, I feel like I always make Daniel speak first.
Yeah, I'm probably going to pass on this question just because I'm hetero-romantic, and that is kind of, I think, what we all grow up assuming. So I had a pretty easy time because society.
Okay. I mean, I'm sure we should all still really be interested to hear, but if you want to pass, I will pass on to Daniel. Daniel?
Yeah. So I'll probably be quite brief anyway, just because I've made a couple of videos about this. I've talked about this on Sounds Fake But Okay. I've talked about this on AOK podcast. So go check those out. There you go. There's your plug, Kayla.
Oh, thank you.
For a while in secondary school, I thought I was aromantic because I didn't want sex and I didn't know about the split attraction model or asexuality in general. And it took finding out about the split attraction model to realize that I was attracted to guys, but only romantically. And I didn't really work that out until university, so when I was around 19. But yes, once I knew about the split attraction model, I knew that's what I was, just because guys are attractive.
Fair enough. So thanks, guys. That was really interesting. I think the next question is, in your opinions, what are the best and worst online dating sites for aces seeking ace partners or relationships?
I personally only used Tinder, which I know is weird because it's traditionally like a hookup app. I found it fine. I got 2 long-term relationships out of Tinder. One was like 1.5 years long, so I'm pretty good at dating apps. But I don't know that Tinder is the best. I think a lot of the other apps, like an OkCupid or a Hinge, will just allow for like more customization of your profile. But I don't know. I didn't use those, so.
Yeah, I had a pretty good experience with Tinder too. That's where I met my current boyfriend. But it is worth noting that I am gay and we have Grindr for hookups. So I imagine Tinder is therefore not as hookup-y for gay guys. I'm not sure. That's just the theory.
From what I understand, there's a lot less ab pictures on Tinder than there are on Grindr.
I did get a picture of someone's legs once, just like their thighs was like their Tinder picture.
Absolutely not.
It was very strange, and I was like, nope. But it is worth noting that there has been recently a new ace dating site that looks quite professional. That came up a few months ago. I've lost track of time, so I don't know when exactly it was. But I think it's just called asexuals.net.
I think.
.net, yeah. But I haven't heard. It looks good. I haven't heard any good or bad. I haven't used it myself because I was already dating by that point. But it's worth checking out.
Yeah,
awesome. Thank you.
Oh, yeah. The only one I'm on is Hinge, and basically the reason I joined that one is because it seemed less sketchy than Tinder. I'm not sure if that's actually true or not. It markets itself as being more towards long-term relationships, and I mean, it's been fine, I guess. I don't know if like dating sites really agree with me in general, but basically, I remember looking into some ace-specific ones, and they're not very widely used just because there aren't a lot of asexuals like in a given geographic area. So you probably will have to use like maybe a non-ace specific one. I'm not totally sure about asexuals.net since that didn't exist at the time. But yeah, you might have to try a couple different things. I don't know if there's a specifically best one.
Yeah, I think it might also depend on whether you want to specifically look for aces to date or whether you're willing to date people allos as well. Because maybe if you find dating allos, then using things like Tinder would be okay. But if you're just want to find ace people, it might just narrow the search down if you go on asexuals.net or something.
Yeah, you will likely be in a long distance relationship, though, is what I've heard about asexual specific dating sites. So you'd have to be open to that as well.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you very much. And the next question, going into the theme again of dating allo partners. Are there any red flags to watch out for as an ace when pursuing a romantic relationship with an allo partner? In your opinions?
Probably just not being good with boundaries is probably a red flag for any relationship of any variety. But if you like come out as A-spec and they are not down with that, I'd probably leave. And if they aren't willing to like work with you on like how often things happen or if things happen or whatever, yeah, that's probably the biggest one.
Yeah, it's I was just hesitated because I found it difficult to think of specific red flags for if you're ace. But in a previous relationship, my ex wasn't really up for talking about boundaries and sex and stuff, but he still wanted it, which is not a good situation to be in. And I advise not being in a situation like that and finding someone who is open to talking about asexuality and open to talking about your boundaries and maintaining that conversation throughout the relationship.
Yeah, I think a lot of just general red flags still apply when you're ace. Can't think of anything really specifically, but yeah, boundaries very important. Or if you come out as ace and they don't seem like they're being a good ally or something, like just get out of that. That's bad news bears. Yeah.
If I'm like guilting you into things, that's, I mean, again, in any relationship, bad news, but especially around like sexual things. If they're trying to be like, but I wanna, then you can be like, but I don't want to, sir, or ma'am, or person.
Watching definitions again, someone just asked what's allo. Allo just means someone who isn't on the ace spectrum. So, yeah.
Someone who does experience the attraction. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to actually try and remember to define things in future. I'm really sorry to everyone so far.
We're all forgetting to.
Yeah.
I'm just too used to using all the jargon.
Sign you've been in this too long. So thank you guys for the insightful answer. The next question, which I find very interesting, is: do you think aromantics or aros can have romantic relationships? And if so, what might that look like?
I could take this one.
So,
yeah, as a romantic, it's definitely possible to have romantic relationships. What that looks like, though, is again, you got to communicate a lot. You've got to communicate what constitutes as romantic for you, and what about that you're okay with doing. So some aros like hand holding, like cuddling, kissing, and things like that, and some don't. So you've got to make it very clear to your partner, because I think a lot of those things are even more assumed when you're in a romantic relationship, that like you're going to be doing sort of stereotypically romantic things. And if that's something you're not interested in, you got to make sure you communicate that pretty early on. And things like that. And it's a lot of just kind of figuring out what constitutes as romance for you, and what about that you like, what about you don't, and making sure your partner understands that as well. But it is definitely possible. Yes.
Oh, thank you. Daniel, Kayla,
Yeah.
do either of you?
I'm not aromantic, but I am an asexual in a sexual relationship. So when my boyfriend and I are together, we are sexually active. So if you can draw a parallel between those two, then I would say it's absolutely possible, in the same way that an asexual relationship that's sexually active would be.
Yeah, I don't have anything to add. Those are all good.
So, all good answers. Thank you very much. And the next question is, again, one I find very interesting. What are your thoughts or experiences about polyamory as an ace?
Seems good. I don't know.
It's not something that I personally would be up for, just because I'm too clingy and selfish to share my person.
Yeah, I'm definitely the same way. I don't think I could ever do it, but if that's for you, go for it.
Yeah, I mean, same, where I don't think polyamory would work for me, because I mean, it's hard just communicating with one person for me, and then you bring more people into it, and I'm like, God, that's a lot. But I mean, I know there are aces that really like polyamory, because I don't know, they get different things from different partners. So you do you. Just remember to communicate.
Awesome. Thank you. I appreciate that's probably not the diversity of experience that the question was asking. If it helps, we did actually, when we did this panel at the conference last year, I think 2 of the 3 panelists were polyamorous. And from what I remember of that panel, they obviously all had a great time, and they said a lot of it was about, again, almost like a key word here, communication. So sort of being open with each of your partners about their feelings. If you're still interested in sort of finding out more, I'll see if we still have the details of the people who gave the panel last year, and we can perhaps ask them if they'd be willing to get in touch with you, if you wanted us to go down that route. The next question is, how do you distinguish between romantic and platonic feelings?
That was similar to the question with the crushes and squishes. For me, I want to hug people I'm romantically attracted to. I don't want people to hug me if they're my friend.
I don't know if this is a very helpful answer, but I think it's just, for me, a very internal feeling, like physically almost. Like I said earlier, I get a lot more nervous and anxious, I think, around people I have romantic feelings towards, because it just feels like there's higher stakes for some reason. So for me, I feel emotions very strongly, like in my chest physically. I think I have anxiety, so she lives there. So I kind of just like physically feel it more. Kind of like, I guess, like the butterflies that people talk about, I guess, but with anxiety.
Yeah, for me, it's the same answer as earlier, where I don't really know the difference for the most part. But if I am interested in a romantic relationship with someone, we'll have those more serious life planning conversations where we're talking about like what we want the relationship to look like and where we want it to go. So that's really what distinguishes it for me.
Yeah. Thank you very much for that. I think the next question, which sounds a little similar to when you've asked, but I think they're looking more from sort of at the outside perspective, is how do you deal with people who dismiss your relationships because you don't have sex? And how can you get them to understand that non-sexual relationships can be just as valid and fulfilling?
This one is hard for me because I do have sex in my relationships. So I don't know if I'm the best to answer this, but I think, again, it's just like telling people, like, people in allo relationships don't necessarily have that much sex either. And for a lot of people, like, it is, like, even for me, the sex part of my relationships are not the most important part. Like, it's something that if my partner was like, I don't know about this, then I'd probably be like, okay, fine. I don't care. So I think just reminding people that, like, even outside of asexual relationships, that there's like a lot of diversity.
Cool.
Yeah, I think if sex was the only important part of a relationship, then people wouldn't have relationships. They would just have hookers. It's just, but yeah, I can't really talk from my own personal experience because my current boyfriend, I've been sexually active as well. But yeah, it's not like a massive part of the relationship. If it disappeared, if we stopped having sex, I wouldn't mind in the slightest. If we stopped like cooking together, then I would be devastated.
Oh,
I like cooking.
Oh, that's so precious.
Yeah, so in my previous relationship, we didn't have sex. But to be honest, my main response to this question is, why does this person know all these details about my sex life? And why do you care? But I mean, if this person knows that you're not having sex in your relationship, then yeah, just getting them to understand that there's a lot more to a relationship than just sex. Like, if you're dating someone, I hope it's not just because you want to have sex with them. It's because you like talking to them and you like hanging out with them and you like, I don't know, going to the movies and going on dates and stuff like that. So it's none of their business, but if they insist, there's a lot more to it than that.
I would honestly ask that person if they're okay, I think. Like, if they are so, like, stuck to the idea of like, sex in a relationship, I would probably be like, how is your relationship doing? Like, are you okay? Because
It's actually a cry for help.
I feel like you're not.
I do appreciate the turning the question back round on them. So the next question is being ace, in your opinion, really considered as a negative in the dating world, and especially with guys?
Well, I'm a guy, so I should probably be saying something here. I think
the guys who aren't you, Daniel, non-ace guys, might be what they're getting at, but I'm just reading out the questions being submitted.
Well, you're dating a non-ace guy, so.
I date non-ace guys, so I can also answer this question.
Wait a minute.
I think that probably what that is alluding to is that society expects men to be inherently more sexual, and if someone thinks that it's a negative that you're asexual, they're just an idiot, because it's not a negative. People will just have different relationships, will look different for absolutely everyone, and so you being asexual doesn't detract from a relationship, and please don't let anyone make you feel that way, because it's just not true.
Yeah, dating as an asexual is like, you've got to be okay with some people aren't going to want to date you because you are asexual, but at the same time, it doesn't make you any less than any other person. And if you meet someone who considers it a negative, then like, yeah, don't bother, to be honest, because they're just not thinking about, they're just not going to be a good match for you, basically. I mostly date women, so I can't speak to men because I don't want to deal with men most of the time, but that goes for anyone.
I personally find most often being demisexual as a big plus. There's some days I don't feel like that, of course, but like you get to know someone before you have sex. You can make sure sex isn't the only reason they're dating you. They can feel pretty secure that I'm never going to cheat on them because my attraction is on them only. So I feel like I'm pretty great to date. Adam?
I love that.
There might be other reasons I'm not great to date, but I think my sexuality I think it's a pro.
Awesome. I feel like if you have a dating profile, you should probably put that on there. It's like, really? It's just a pro. It's a plus.
If I'm ever single again, which I hope I'm not, but if I am, I will definitely do that.
Put on your dating profile, I am a 10 out of 10.
10 out of 10 would date again. Awesome. So we've got about 7 minutes left, so hopefully we can get through the next few questions. I'm afraid we might not be able to get through everyone's questions, unfortunately. The next question is, hang on. Would you consider that romantic attraction is divided into two separate branches? That is pure romantic, so no physical contact, and things such as sensual attraction, so things such as kisses.
I think that could kind of go into, if you look at the split model of attraction, there's sexual, there's 5, sexual, romantic, platonic, sensual, and aesthetic attraction, if you really want to split them up a ton. So I feel like you could have a romantic attraction that is also sensual and a romantic attraction that's maybe just aesthetic, I guess. Does that make sense?
I think so.
Yeah. I think you should split attraction up into as many different parts as is useful to you. For me, I only use romantic and sexual attraction to describe myself because my romantic attraction and sensual attraction are interlinked, interwoven to the point where it's difficult to distinguish between the two. If I'm romantically attracted to someone, that will probably mean I also want to hug or kiss them. Just because that's just how my attraction works. But if you want to split them up, then and that's how if you can feel them separately and distinctly, then by all means do.
Yeah, I would definitely echo divide them up in a way that is useful for you. People are going to experience some types of attraction as linked and others as not. Like for me personally, I don't know. I don't really know what's going on like most of the time. So I feel sensual attraction to people I'm close to, and I sometimes get romantic attraction. And the divide just isn't that clear cut for me. So if it's useful for you to divide the two, then yeah, go for it. But do what you think works for you personally.
Yeah, and I think like it's, I don't know, it makes me feel better to think about like even people who don't know about or use the split model of attraction, they are still like it is still like applicable to them, I guess. Like everyone still does have distinct like romantic or sexual attractions, even if they are very linked. So I know like some people who are aphobic are like, oh, this is so complicated, breaking up everything into a bunch of parts. But if it helps you like understand your experience better, it's probably going to make you just like a more happy person, I guess, if you want to understand yourself. And I don't know, once I understood my sexuality, it made my relationships better. So, I mean, that also helps as well.
Awesome. I am going to wrap up that question there because I'm conscious we've got less than 4 minutes, a few questions to go. So I think the next question I'm going to ask is, if you don't want to use online dating sites, how do you find or meet up with a potential ace partner?
I suppose if you're willing to date allos as well, then in the same way that anyone else meets up with a potential partner, I would avoid overtly sexualized spaces. Like in my case, I wouldn't really go to like a gay bar to meet up with guys because that's where a lot of the hookup culture would be. But also you could visit LGBT plus spaces, groups, meetup places, or more specifically ace ones, maybe not with the intention of finding someone to date, but maybe just make friends and then they might know someone, or you might end up finding someone through that way.
Yeah, I would say focus on just trying to make friends, really. Get to know people and develop relationships with a lot of people. It seems like this person is asking specifically about ace partners, in which case I guess going to meetups would be a good way to do that and trying to make friends through those channels. But yeah, try not to think of it as I am going here specifically to date someone. Think of it more as I'm trying to make connections and get to know people. And I think that'll be a lot easier.
Yeah, I think queer spaces in general, I think, tend to have a higher population of ace people. I was in a theater group in college, and there was an abnormally high percentage of ace people. There was like 5 of us, and it was not that big of a group. So I think just going to places that are more open and tolerant of things in general is probably where other ace people are kind of going to congregate.
Awesome. So we have, I think, about 30 seconds for the next question. So bigs on the buzzers. What is the most appropriate way to respond to friends or potential dates who shut down your asexuality by saying things like, it doesn't need a label, or you're just picky?
Punch them.
Yeah, stop being
We don't advocate violence. Carry on.
Don't, but you can think about it. That might make you feel better.
Yeah, no, very seriously, like, don't consider that person a friend. That's a very rude, inconsiderate thing to say to someone about any label, not just asexuality. And you deserve better than that.
Yeah, just turn and walk away because they're obviously not a very nice person.
Yeah, there's 2 routes. You can either, if you're like really dedicated, you can try to educate them, which you by no means have to do, but if you're feeling it, go for it. And if not, just leave, and they're probably not a great person to be around.
So thank you. I'm going to have to wrap it up there because we have less than 30 seconds. So unfortunately, that is all we have time for today. I hope everyone will join me in giving a huge round of mental applause to Kayla, Daniel and Christa, and thank them for being such lovely and illuminating speakers, if on occasion slightly violent. So right now, we have a break between panels until 5 p.m. If you have signed up to Gather and fancy some ace comedy or to meet Yasmin, one of the UK's leading ace activists, head on over to Gather right now. If you'd like to join the Gather discussions on trauma and abuse or on older aces, these are taking place on Gather at 4 p.m. Otherwise, feel free to take some time for yourselves or on Gather, mingle with other attendees. The next and final panel discussions will be starting at 5 p.m. UK time. So thank you very much, everyone, and I hope you have a lovely afternoon. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.